Hello everybody, this is MKWii and this is a bit of a follow-up video to yesterday's upload. In case you missed it, it was a short clip where I made the road of Luigi Circuit a cannon trigger, which ended up causing all the players to bounce around. That video started with a message in my Discord server yesterday. Amalox asked if cannons work before the race starts. PiggyWig 2000 assumed the developers would have had no reason to disable specific collision types during the race countdown. I myself was wondering if it then would be possible to complete a race before it starts. Of course, what we need is a scientific experiment. So I went ahead and modeled a test track to the best of my abilities. The player will start on the left side of the track, and there will be 4 finish line key checkpoints in a row for the player to drive through. I split the test up into 2 parts. A control test, where the player simply drives over the road through the checkpoints, and the actual experiment, where the ground is a cannon trigger that the player falls onto as the countdown is happening. The cannon point is set so that the player will fly through the key checkpoints before it ends. Time for observations. The control experiment tells us that my setup works, and the key checkpoints do indeed cause the race to finish. Let's start the experiment. You can ignore the glitching once the cannon ends. What happens here is that the cannon ends inside its own trigger, causing an infinite loop of cannoning and landing. What is strange about this result is the lap timings. Let's rewatch the footage and inspect the in-game timer. The frame where lap 2 starts, the timer jumps to 0.014 seconds, after which it starts blinking red, as it usually does after a lap increment. However, when the blinking ends, the timer suddenly shows 0.003 seconds. This would be the total time of the race, but how does it have a time when the race has not even started yet? Next, we see the lap times overview. Take a moment to let this sink in. What is going on here? Lap 1 is 14 milliseconds, lap 2 is 0 milliseconds, and lap 3 is 1 millisecond. And yet, the total time on the left shows 3 milliseconds. I must say, I have no clue what's going on here. If we quickly go back to yesterday's video, we can see that the lap time is 17 milliseconds. This would make sense, given that the game runs at 60 frames per second, and a single frame is 1 over 60 equals 16.666 recurring milliseconds. Round that up and you get 17 milliseconds. Makes sense, right? Looking back at our time trials instance, this doesn't add up. We do know that Mario Kart Wii does not actually count frames when determining time trial timings. By using the position of the player on the frames before and after finishing, it determines more accurately when the player crossed the finish line. This may be the cause of the strange lap times. This, however, does not explain the incorrect total time. And the biggest mystery of all, why are there any times in the first place? The race is still in its countdown state after all. More experiments are going to have to be done in order to figure out exactly what happens. That, or someone with great knowledge of Mario Kart Wii, such as Mr. Bean 35000 VR, could try to work out what happens by looking into the game's internal behavior. So while writing the script of this video, I came up with something else to test. My hypothesis was that the game would start the timer regardless when you cross the finish line for the first time. It wouldn't make sense why Nintendo would program that in, but hey, that's why we're testing in science. So I made another setup where there are only 2 key checkpoints, one at the start line and the other close to the cannon drop-off point. Let's have a look. As it turns out, my hypothesis is not correct. The timer stays at 0 the entire time until lap 2 is entered, when it suddenly registers a lap as 2 milliseconds. We can also observe that the timer is completely normal and starts as the countdown ends. So, that's the end of the video. It's a strange one, I know, but having had a chance to combine 2 of my favorite things, Mario Kart Wii and science experiments, got me to make this video. Here's some extra miscellaneous information about the setup. Loading the Luigi Circuit setup from my previous video into Versus Mode or Grand Prix starts the intro cameras like normal. You can choose to skip the intro, and everything works fine, except when you let the cameras end, well, it doesn't. The camera stops, and pressing the A button to skip does nothing. You're soft-locked. And another little bit of information. This setup only works if there are no other key checkpoints in the level that are not of ID 00. 00 being the finish line. This causes the finish lines to break and not count laps. This was discovered years ago when people tried making single lap custom tracks using this method. Lastly, the 23 minutes on the timer from yesterday's video is likely caused by CTGP's anti-cheat system for when someone finishes the race way too quickly. Oh, and there are some download links for the tracks I used for testing in the description, in case you want to try and have a look at them for yourself. Don't even try to use them to cheat on WiiMfi, it won't work and you will be kicked or temporarily banned for using custom tracks in regular worldwides. And that's about it. I hope you found this video interesting. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.